Thank you. We will start with Public Works.
Morning.
Good morning.
Our list is pretty short today, so at least from the things we have, it should go quick. Construction side, we have no consent agenda items. Construction, Roosevelt Grade Road, no change. Small Works Guardrail Project. We actually have a start date of the end of September 26th for that work to start, so that's good. Courtney Road, the contractor's still removing hard rock, shaping embankments, installing culverts, dressing slopes and ditches on the upper section, and then getting the lower section ready to pave. In fact, they are trying to scramble to pave next week, but that's really pushing it because they don't have a mixed design submitted and all the other things. So sometime in September, that's what we're hoping. They just have to get their things together. Annual striping program, it seems that it's challenging to get paint for the contractor, but
we're going to use Anna's paint, which is what they typically use, is out till October 31st. We're like, okay, that won't work for us. We're not going to paint in snow or the possibility of snow or freezing, and it doesn't. So there's another new brand out there that has the same quality, and we should just bring that then. As long as we're not paying more for it, we're okay with it.
okay, on the design side, and this is actually moving into construction, the Klickitat path. So county crews are getting set up. We're ordering materials, and they actually brushed it, the railroad grade last week, and they're getting the equipment and stuff set up so they could actually build it. So work has started.
How much brushing was there in town?
A lot of blackberries.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
We kind of pushed it back too, got rid of the blackberries. Careful of the trees, but the blackberries we
Okay.
took out.
Yeah, they actually have a lot of trees along there.
Yeah.
The parking lots, we're also kind of regrouping on that, and we will be paving and doing some of the concrete work here this fall as crews are freed up and able to do that. Rock Creek Bridge, still trying to wait for WashDOT to give us some of our approvals that we submitted quite a while ago, and for that bridge painting project. Sundale Road and Old Highway 8, starting to get our alignments and everything set up for that and start laying out the new road. Maintenance side.
Before you go for that, remind me, when is the funding available for that? It's not until
Next 24.
24. Thank you.
Maintenance projects, crews today are finishing up the last shot on the BST on Old Mountain Road today, and I think that'll finish our oiling this year. So then they're also working on the Sadis Pass site and doing some grading. So still challenged over on the east end by Lund Hill with grading, and so they told me on Friday they would start today on their section. If they don't, then we will start, and then we'll just bill them back. So one of the things that I know that Dan, you had concerns with about, what's to stop them from just letting us do it. We and tie up our crews. We can actually hire contractors to do that work as well. So if needed, it doesn't have to be our crews. We just have to kind of plan ahead if they stop.
Right, that's kind of one of my worries is if they have to hire a contractor and say it costs them $100,000 versus whether they just let us do it and then they get a bill for 80, that saves them money. I want them to get a bill for 120. I want them to handle it themselves or be punished for not handling it themselves.
Yeah, it's likely that it would cost more because if we hire a contractor, that'd be the same price they would pay, plus we'd have some kind of overhead that we'd also add in there for actually getting somebody to do the work. So, but that's not really what we want to do. We
Right.
want to have
You have other
mechanisms
things to do.
make it work, and that's what we're working on for Bluebird.
Right.
And this is the roads that they'd agreed to fix, not the one that
Yes.
we're having issues with.
Yep.
It's outside of it.
Yeah. Okay, and so, yeah, I am still working on putting together it's a road, under the road closure RCW to set a speed limit. And hopefully I'll have that for you on Tuesday to approve, next Tuesday. And then we can enact that, get the signs up, and then let the sheriff enforce it. So that will help, I think, as soon as word gets out. West End crews, hauling rock for today with the Bickleton guys to get Old Mountain complete. And then they're starting work on the trail as well, so that's their week's worth of work. On the facility side, talked about the parking lots, the HVAC system. We meet with the contractor tomorrow to discuss the solutions for the remaining few areas in this building. The guys started on the wireless bridge to Annex 4. They installed the microwave and made some of the connections, and by this month they'll finish that, and then we can get those cables that tie this building to the courthouse and Annex 4. Those will be wrecked out finally. And then we still are waiting till the end of the month, 1st of October, to install those units at the Pioneer Center. And radio site, I'll let Jeff.
Let's see, electrical rough end's done. We're waiting for our inspection. It's a little bit of a trip out there, so, but Dave's supposed to go there this week. Then from there, we'll finish, the contractor, our guys will finish the construction, and the road guys are up finishing up the main road today and tomorrow. And then it's just a matter of us waiting for the tower and things like that.
So we already talked about Middle Road, so that's the end of our list today.
You guys are getting real fast.
Today it is, yeah.
Today.
Any questions from my seatmates?
No,
Nothing for me.
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do you gentlemen have anything good for the order?
I'm gonna pass my seatmate something good for the order. Just photos, anybody cares.
Oh,
This is the old photo thing. I'm hoping that you find some time to stick a sticky note on anything that.
I like, or say
So that,
absolutely not.
well, the sticky note on the things that are
Mhm.
okay, so we at least know the flavor
Okay,
we're looking for,
sure.
if we're looking for. And
Um,
obviously the price.
the
went down.
email that was sent, last week that had
So the
pictures. I like some of those.
These sticky notes are like your sticky
No, the orange ones came with the book, the green ones are one of our employees.
Okay.
I think this was the email that you were referring to.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was
That's
good.
the section that was missing.
Right. I like that.
Yep, that's what me and Gordy both liked more than what was in
Then
there.
everything in there.
Than just, picture of a building. So yeah, in that book there's two sections that look exactly the same. And that's because they forgot to put that packet in there. I forgot to mention that. So you actually did like the industry and farming, or at least some of the ones in
Yep.
there?
I did. Amazingly.
Did you see the logs?
Eh?
There was logs that were
Oh, drilled?
drilled to
Yeah.
be pipe.
Yeah, the original pipe.
I was just happening.
Were you looking at that one?
What is up? What did they?
I
do
think that one
with
was really
And then the
fascinating
city
to
bought
me.
it. The
And it was
city-
on for Pipeline Road right out here. And that was the old water pipe coming off the hill. And I'm like, see, now that's kind of neat. You can actually see how they've notched them out to plug together and
Mm-hmm. Boy, could you imagine the amount of leak in that?
do you need sticky notes down there, sir?
I will, yeah. It's just fascinating, it doesn't really
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll get my glasses on, maybe just Whitney can jump right in.
Sure. Good morning. We'll start off with some natural resource updates. So starting in the world of salmon, thank you for appointing our two most recent Citizens Review Committee members. That was on, I think, 2 weeks ago, the consent agenda. They've jumped right in and they're helping out already. We'll have another CRC appointment resolution coming before you soon, and this is to reappoint Kelly Clothier as Underwood Conservation District's representative on the Citizens Review Committee. The committee had a meeting last week, and they supported the Mid-Columbia Fisheries Enhancement Group's request for additional funding for the Lower Snyder Creek Restoration Project. So this is the project that goes through the Klickitat mill site. And this request is for funding to drill additional wells on the site so they have a better understanding of groundwater. So that request is now going to the state. They have to approve it ultimately. So we should know soon whether or not they receive that funding. So that brings us to the mill site in general, and they will be requesting, if they get the funding, to drill 2 additional wells on the county property at that site, which we've discussed previously. We're coordinating with Public Works on that, and we would have some type of landowner agreement with the fisheries group about drilling those wells, and that would include a financial commitment for them to decommission the wells in the future once the restoration planning phase for fish habitat is complete.
Right.
That cover that?
Yep.
Okay. Then in other fish news, NOAA did release the 5-year status review for Mid-Columbia steelhead, which are listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. There's no major change in their listing status. They're still at moderate risk of extinction over the next 100 years, so more of the same. There's continued focus on restoring and protecting tributary habitat, which is what we do through our salmon recovery process with the state. Also looking at increasing stream flow and reducing stream temperatures, because those seem to be some of the major stressors for fish in our freshwater environment. They did include a new goal of protecting and enhancing thermal refugia, and we have several streams identified as thermal refuge streams, including the Klickitat and the white salmon. So that's kind of a trend we're seeing across multiple different management plans now, state, federal, and local with the Gorge Commission too, that focus on thermal refuge areas. It also calls for maintaining fish monitoring, which we're doing on all 3 of our major basins here, and then identifying ways to contribute to increased stream flow, because that seems to be an ongoing topic as well, just maintaining flows in order to maintain temperature for fish in our watersheds.
Yeah, I'd say probably the 2 big things to keep an eye on I saw in this that are relatively new. You may recall a couple of years ago, there was some litigation on the west side relative to FEMA and its flood insurance program, building in floodplain, whether or not they could qualify for flood insurance required them to consult with National Marine Fisheries Service, a Section 7 consultation. This status review, a couple of places mentioned that floodplain insurance program. So I suspect there's going to be or anticipate some initiative to try to move that focus on the flood insurance program impacts to the east side. Klickitat County is not, we're not going to be like Yakima County, which would have a lot of floodplain issues, but so that's one, and the other, of course, is the thermal refuge area. that's going to be interesting as it unfolds in the future.
What are they trying to do or change with the thermal refuge area?
Protect and enhance. So for us,
Protect and enhance for habitat and whatnot?
the cold water refuge area, can you increase it, make it colder? The potential impacts or initiatives to, come up with in-stream flow rules for our rivers while, they're nice and cool, they, might want more water. I think most of it now is sort of focusing on, can they increase the, habitat area at the mouth, maybe some dredging or something like that. But
A lot of it's also supporting the purchase of water rights to put them back in stream, so that you have more cold water.
Okay.
yeah, so once, for all those people with streams with real temperature problems, they have this to look forward to. Once they get them cooled down, then the restrictions will get tighter because they want to protect the higher quality habitats. Anyway. Go, or I editorialize some more.
Okay, so moving now on to the Simcoe Coordinated Resource Management Plan for the WDFW acquired lands east of 97. The first update is that acreage is now at its final size. Earlier this year, WDFW was trying to acquire a couple more parcels from WPT, but their bid was rejected. So I don't have the total acreage currently. I need to plug it into GIS to get that number, but it won't be expanding any more than it currently is.
Really? So did WPT sell those parcels to somebody else then?
I believe so. Yep. Apparently it happened very fast. So WDFW was surprised by it, but it went pretty quick.
Do we have an owner?
I didn't look up the
Oh.
specific parcels, no. And then in terms of how the coordinated resource management plan process is going, the central and eastern Klickitat conservation districts are still negotiating with WDFW regarding grazing and timber rights. So no update has to share there, aside from they're still in negotiations. But until that decision is settled, the conservation district staff haven't been participating in the meetings. They just can't commit the staff time until the management question is settled. So the CRM process is limping along, I guess, in their absence. There's still representatives from the county, because I've been going, and Yakima Nation is there as well, and some private landowners, but it isn't quite as robust as it would be if the conservation districts were fully participating. So what we're doing at those meetings is finalizing the management plan for that acreage. And then once the chapters of that plan have been finalized, there will be several public meetings where people can gather or learn about the plan and give additional input, and that input will be incorporated before the plan even goes through SEPA. So there's a lot more outreach to come.
So what in the current, the plan as it's being developed, absent the conservation district's robust involvement, are grazing and timber, is that in the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Is there, so it's not just omitted?
No, there's a forestry and there's a grazing chapter within the plan. And for each of those chapters, initially there was quite a bit of discussion as between the districts and WDFW for what direction it would take.
Mhm.
So they've reviewed some of it, but they aren't in the room for the final decision, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're hoping they come to some sort of agreement soon, because obviously their participation would be valued, and they're an adjacent landowner. They do own acreage adjacent to the WDFW property. So for those public meetings to review the plan before it goes through SEPA, there'll be one in Goldendale, one in Toppenish, and then possibly one virtual open house. So it's a chance for the public to learn about the plan and hopefully address issues before it goes through SEPA. That's it on Simcoe. For the other conservation district in the county, Underwood Conservation District is gathering input from stakeholders on their long-range plan for what they'll be doing for the coming years. So I believe they'll be reaching out to Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Sauter to have a meeting sometime in the next coming month to discuss how they could strengthen their programs or if there are unmet needs in the county that they could help address. And they'll also be meeting with our staff independently.
Toby will be coming in the next week or so.
Yep. And then last on my list are community wildfire defense grants. So Mount Adams Resource Stewards based out of Glenwood, they'll be submitting a proposal on October 7th for fuels reduction work in western Klickitat County. I've been talking with them throughout the year as well as with Underwood Conservation District and DNR. So it's kind of just a continued conversation and now hopefully getting some funding to do fuels reduction work. But they're hosting a stakeholder planning meeting this week, September 8th in Hewsum. And both Frank from Emergency Management and I will be attending from the county side. So there are several projects identified in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. So we're assuming it'll be something related to those projects. But it's kind of a brainstorm between a lot of partners and DNR as to what we could fund on the west half of the county.
Do you know, are they including the Forest Service in any of that?
Yeah, I think they're looped in. This particular grant can't be used for federal lands. It can only be used for state, local, or private. So, but yeah, they are involved in the coordination because the Forest Service is also doing a lot of work adjacent to Klickitat County, especially behind the Buck Creek drainage over in Skamania. Yep.
Yeah, they also Forest Service received a pretty significant grant for fuels reduction work too, which I have yet to see any actual on the ground reduction of fuels. I think they're still planning, so.
Yeah.
But
It's a long process.
it's a long process. The part that concerns me is sometimes the process takes so long, the problem doesn't exist anymore because it was solved a different way.
Yeah.
Meaning the fire just comes
Right.
through and it's like, oh yeah, all that planning work, never mind.
Yeah.
It's all out the window
Yeah.
and all the good stuff too.
I have
but-
seen the Forest Service doing a lot of really large fuel breaks along roads and on ridge lines,
Mhm.
Okay, good. So hopefully they
all the
are.
way from here to Idaho.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They are trying, and I think collectively everyone is trying to take that more landscape approach or size approach
Plans,
because
yeah.
fire does not appreciate boundaries.
Yeah.
It just burns through it all.
Right.
So, yeah, landscape scale is what we're looking for here, and hopefully this grant pool can help us do some more work locally.
And the only other thing I got to add to natural resources, hopefully we'll have a letter for the tribes to try to initiate some conversations relative to Switzler Canyon to use. So the lead agencies will be signing that letter. And that's it, unless you've got questions on natural resources.
You're not gonna call Switzler Canyon a pump storage, are you?
I actually got some good press in the Seattle Times, or, fairly good.
Switzler did?
Yeah, not Switzler.
No, pump storage.
Pump storage, yeah.
Pump storage project,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was practical, realizing that that's a potentially very important project in terms of energy transition. All right, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you, Whitney.
So for the month of August, we had a number of things that came up with the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport with the federal EDA. A lot of very last minute things. We were able to get all of those things accomplished and we sent everything in. And so from my understanding, they sent me an email saying that I'm good on my side and we're waiting for legal to come back with the award letter. So they're trying to get that pushed out this month. And so that's very important for them. And so right now we're just on standby once again. So moving forward, the Small Business Innovation Fund grant, that's through Washington State. If I'm not mistaken, you wrote a letter of support for the chamber and the city of Goldendale. And then I also put an application in for Klickitat County for $500,000 for the architectural and engineering for that same project down there at the airport. And that was submitted by Friday. Moving forward, I've continued to meet and work with Pat, the new city administrator at Goldendale, on what some of the projects that they're looking at. This last week, Nicole from the chamber, she did a lot of work in regards to partnering up with Pat and getting a lot of that stuff put together for their grant. And then how do we move forward in a number of those different projects that Goldendale is looking at. Working Washington 5, that deadline is going to be this Friday, September 9th by 5 p.m. So we have had a few people reach out, and I'm going to continue reaching back out to those folks this week to make sure as many people as we can get apply for those funds. And then workforce development, we're still working with Clark College on what some options might be for the region, especially in regards to the job skills program and stuff like that, and seeing what options we can utilize for business development here in the county. For startups, we have another restaurant in Goldendale that's going to be coming on in over there at the old Bake My Day restaurant. So it's going to be an Italian restaurant. Dave Vonzo's, they've got I think it's Dave Vonzo's. I just met them, but they have the public notice meeting and everything like that up on their window. So they're already moving forward with the renovations and everything. So that's pretty exciting. And they're also hooked up into a number of the resources we have here at the county. And then community development project funds. The tree trimming with the cemetery district number 1, they met a couple weeks ago, their board, and approved the suggestion from KC BoCC to move ahead with a $5,000 that they would put in, and then a match from the county with the community development project funds of $10,000. And that contract, that memorandum of understanding will be on your guys' desk next Tuesday. So
Wasn't a 50-50 match?
it was a 2-to-1 match.
See, I remembered it as a 50-50 too, so I could be wrong. But that's, when you said it, it surprised me.
I thought it was up to $10,000, 2-to-1 is what I've written down in my notes.
Yeah, they were supposed to put in the 2.
Yeah. I thought it was 50-50.
We can go back and
Transposed them again, did I?
Yeah, if you could go back and check those notes to make sure we're doing what the board did agree on.
Okay.
Um,
And so outside of that, we're still looking at possible,
Because it was a $30,000 project, right?
it was a $22,000 project.
yeah, they wanted 22.
They had $580 in match that they had been able to put together. And so,
I thought the way it was worded was we'll go as high as this number, but we're matching your number. So if they put in 5, we put in 5.
Right.
If they put in 10, we put in 10. Not a 2-to-1, but an actual 50-50 match up to that
10,000.
That's what I remember it being. But like I said, it was long enough ago.
Yeah, that sounds right. That the match, we would match dollar for dollar up to $10,000. But go back and check, because again, that was a month ago.
Yeah. Say there's one good thing for recordings, I guess, is you can see a recording, but that one I don't think is recorded.
It's not recorded?
Did we record KC BoCC meeting?
We didn't.
Yeah.
No, we were
we used-
Zoom. We were Zooming.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah, I
had
just
some
didn't know
folks
if we-
were on Zoom.
Right, but just because we Zoom doesn't mean it's recorded.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if it recorded, so, interesting.
Verify that.
Okay.
I'll do that this week. And then that's pretty much it. So,
Yeah. What I've got to add for the economic development, we submitted comments, that's the county, KCPDA, and then myself on the draft environmental impact statement for the pump storage project. There's a now open an opportunity to comment on the application for 401 water quality certification, which is the reason the EIS was being done. That deadline was today. It's been extended to the end of the month. So I'll be bringing, we'll ghostwrite some letters supporting that for y'all and have them to you for your consideration. The other thing, I guess, we've had since the last meeting, I've responded to one public records request from Cease, and we've got another one in the works now relative to daycare. Thank you, Lee. So we'll be working on that.
It was by cease relative to daycare?
No, it was someone
Oh.
else. Cease is,
Okay.
we addressed their questions, I believe.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Mhm.
How do we, just this is more a question for everybody, I guess, how are we tracking our time and resources as far as to meet those public records requests? I mean, all public records requests. Because we do have because there is a threshold that if we expend more than, I think it's $100,000 in a year, in a budget year, we have to report
I
more
have-
detailed information to the state.
Yeah.
And we have been certifying that we're not, that we're under that threshold. And I just am concerned that given the volume of records requests this last year, that, and I don't know how we even track that.
I note time that I spend on
Okay.
it. I haven't been as diligent as I could be. I'm trying to be.
Right.
But I do note the time, like the Cease one was, I think 9 or 10 hours. And this weekend I did like 7 on the latest one. So we'll see. And then staff is tracking their time.
Well, and that brings up a valid question. It's like the daycare one I saw. It was very generic.
Yeah.
Give me every document that talks about daycare. Well, what's the date range? What's the time range? Are we going back 7 years on this, or
Yeah,
I really think we need to hit them back with what exactly are you looking for, so that we can save our staff 20 hours of work
That's in the works.
and give you
Yeah,
and
what you're
have a
looking for.
policy that every time we get one is don't just say, okay, we'll get it to you. It's like, what,
Yeah.
get back to them and dig into it. Because I honestly don't think the majority of these people realize that one little question about childcare is costing, 40 hours when you think of everybody
right.
digging through there to give you the information that,
Are we looking for every scrap of piece of paper that has something to do with that topic?
going back 7 years, or are you really just
Longer.
looking
Or longer.
for an answer that maybe can be facilitated in a phone call?
Yeah, or a couple of documents rather than, every email that's happened in the last 20 years.
Mhm. Because same deal, we're all gonna, sure, I got the childcare study from WAGAP. Well, I'm sure you guys got it too.
Yeah,
And he's got it, and he's got it, and then they're gonna get it 74 times because they're getting documents from 74 different people. So I don't know. Gonna have to get my blood pressure cuff up.
yeah. Just how do you narrow down? Because sometimes they're looking for information that can be solved in a couple of documents.
Mhm.
Okay.
Continuing on.
That's it?
That's it? Wow. Any questions from my seatmates?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Short.
Yeah, looking at the agenda today, it was gonna be short and sweet.
I don't have a problem with that. All right. There it is. Next up, Code Compliance Officer, George.
Good morning.
Sure. You got skipped. You can have mine.
I'll also try to keep mine short.
Yeah, always make sure you bring
Yeah,
at
sorry.
least one copy. If there's 2 people, 2 copies.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So this will be my second update to the commissioners since I took on the county code compliance officer role. As of this date, I have 27 active cases. I have opened 5 new cases for August, closed 3 and forwarded or dismissed 3 recent reports. Community outreach has been an emphasis since I took on the role. I attending local events to familiarize the public with who I am and what my department entails is a necessity in my opinion. For the month of August, I opened up a Facebook page titled Klickitat County Code Compliance to keep up with modern times. In its short life, it's received some traction without too much effort. As of now, I've added the basics to the page, but I will strive to use the platform to educate and inform the public of Klickitat County. Regarding my ongoing cases, I had to do some paper service on the following properties. And they're all the ones listed below. Paper service is usually my last resort. It's an attempt to contact the property owners, as walking into the property has elevated risk. I'm happy to report that contact was made with all the property owners and the contact information was exchanged with the listed properties. Compliance with all cases is slow moving. Keeping that in mind, the following cases are moving towards compliance. 142 Main Street in Wishram. Cleanup is almost complete. The second site inspection showed massive improvements with the tenants showing a willingness to reach compliance. I project this case will be closed by the end of the month. Follow-up is due at the 15th of this month. A request to commissioners. As of now, I'm driving a 2012 Ford Escape. Great vehicle, except not for my current use. My issues are based off of officer safety and its capabilities. Most of my complaints are in rural areas with primitive roads. While the Escape handles these roads well, it does not complete each visit without a couple of hard bangs and pops. For me, it's frustrating, especially knowing that something with higher ground clearance could easily make these trails without without any of those bumps or bangs. Also, because of the legalities, most of my inspections are done from the easement, usually from the side of the main road. My current vehicle does not have any form of signaling besides its hazards. I consider my work much like utility, public works, or law enforcement. Anyone standing on the side of the road should have a vehicle equipped with flashing amber lights for personal safety, especially considering for each case, I usually visit and document the progress a minimum of 3 times. Ultimately, what I'm requesting is to pick up a surplus from another department. I have submitted this request informally to other departments, which refer me to you for permission. And that concludes my update. I was also gone from August 26th to today, so I've missed out.
Ms. Lee? I understand the pickup. There may potentially be a pickup. I can think of a couple, so as we go through the year in the budget process, we will see if one becomes available.
Okay. And then
You just setting your flashers on right now when you're on the side of the road?
usually I try to set up my vehicle far down the road, and I throw on a vest, and then that's pretty much as good as it gets for right
Do you
now.
park where you can because it's safe, throw on a vest and huff it back to where you need to go to look
Yeah.
at pictures?
Which you'd probably do anyways, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. What I would like to do is much like Commissioner Christopher was saying, I see a lot of like surplus trucks around the county that aren't being used, like old public works trucks or something. You know, I'm not asking for anything new or anything. What I would like to do is set my truck, you know, give myself a buffer in case someone doesn't see me or.
I think you're
Right.
talking of setting it up more kind of like what the litter crew truck is. Amber lights overhead that you can flip on when you stop to get traffic to slow, and then along with your hazards. And
Yeah. Yeah, August was, yeah, paper service took up a lot of time for August. I usually don't like to do paper service. It's really dangerous, in my opinion. If the property owner doesn't know you're coming, it usually puts me in really awkward situations. 24 Brems Way was actually a pretty good example. I went down there. I said hi to one of the property owners. Turns out he is a wanted felon on like multiple firearm charges. I didn't know who this guy was, but apparently he's so.
See, that's the one thing where I would recommend you do the same. Lem, when he had to go out and do things like that or go to a house, he would always call it in or check it on the database to see who he's dealing with, what's potentially here. So that way he knew he could call an escort
Yeah,
if he needed one. So yeah, you need to know what you're walking into.
which I usually do, but I mean, you at the end of the day, you never truly know who's going to be on the property. It just, yeah. Most of the properties though, I do let dispatch know where I am, and if I do get a gut feeling, I ask for another deputy. They usually make fun of me because they're like, you can't do this by yourself. I don't have all the gadgets you guys have,
Yeah.
the bulletproof vest and all that. So, yeah. Do you guys have any questions about any of the cases listed?
What are you doing with these, code, RV, no permit, motorhome? I'm guessing it's either manufactured home or manufactured home, no permit. What is your direction that you're shooting with the code revision or code RV, no permit?
Usually, usually the RV violations are sewage, water, and waste. Is usually my the reasons why is I open them. There's a lot of cases that I'll get that will just be just because of the RV. Usually, I don't pursue RVs unless the sewage and water isn't being taken care of.
Okay.
I think we're all under the understanding that we don't want to evict people or make people homeless. And RVs right now are a pretty hot commodity. Two of my two new cases are actually like really primitive living, which also, I guess while I have you guys in front of me, I should ask what directive you guys want me to take.
What do you mean by primitive living?
Tents. One is an actual yurt, and the other one is just a tent.
So they own the land. Is there a house or a structure on the land?
Nope.
They own the land. They're just camping on their own land indefinitely, or
But they own it,
Yes.
so it's not a structure.
well, a yurt.
A yurt
The
could
building
be.
department's gonna say if it doesn't have a permanent foundation, blah, 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 blah. The
But a
tent, I
tent-
don't know that you can do anything about that, but the yurt, yeah, you gotta have a permitted foundation, blah, 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 blah.
Yurts are becoming really popular in the county. I see them everywhere.
And most of them are not permitted.
Yeah, three are, three I've received complaints for, but I see them popping up everywhere throughout the county. So,
So what, as far as the folks in the tent, what are they doing for water and sewer, wastewater?
from my understanding,
I mean, because that for me that's usually the hook as far as the.
so water, he's bringing it off-site allegedly. I did see the containers for water. He had a lot of them, so I do believe he's bringing water from off-site. Sewage, he claims he's just digging a hole and burying it. I did talk to the health department about it, and they're not very fond of the idea. They did say that, you know, ultimately it's a low concern. It is one person.
Right.
I mean, there's no rivers, but at the end of the day,
Houses for thousands of years.
Hey, if they're not concerned in the sidewalks of Portland, why are we concerned with somebody does on there?
On their own property?
Yeah, out in the middle of Timbuktu.
yeah, this guy's, every interaction I make with this individual, I have to drive up there. I mean, we're talking primitive living.
Is he
No phone.
calm and civil and?
He wasn't fond of me being on the property, but I think that really goes with anybody I walk into.
I wouldn't be either, so yeah.
No one's ever, yeah.
I don't know. At this point with that gentleman, you know, I guess I'd say at least he's burying it. Deer don't bury it, bear don't bury it, elk don't bury it. When I'm hunting in the woods, I don't bury it.
Yeah, so I had another one on the same. It was on Thompson Trail. They're essentially doing the same thing, but really I closed that case solely on the fact that they were camping on it. They were only doing it.
See, this guy, would I feel much better if he dug a big pit, used the same spot like an outhouse, buried it deeper than what I think he might be digging individual digs for. Absolutely, I think that's more healthy. But
Yeah, I would say for me, barring some evidence of an actual health issue, I mean, I certainly don't want to encourage it, but I think if somebody wants to live on a tent on their land and their impact of them living there isn't spreading beyond their property, and there's no real evidence of that, then why do I care?
And if, yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of curious why, I mean, obviously
Why
you wouldn't,
somebody turned them
you are investigating because somebody turned them
Mhm.
in. And
But is that code or is that nuisance?
this neighbor doesn't like it. I should have moved into an HOA so I can complain about my neighbor. Yeah, I wish the guy had an outhouse or a better scenario and maybe educate in that form, but then if it was me, I would say have a nice day and.
Yeah, get the education, see if you can get some sort of educational materials on outhouses that we use out in Forest Service ground or whatever. And then hand that to them and close the case.
Okay.
I mean, this is what it's about, is education first.
That's kind of where I'm at, so that's what I'd say, print something out with an outhouse, how to build a hole this deep, whatever, sawdust, you know.
Remind him.
Hand it to him and say, just
what it
keep
looks
yourself
like in
clean
3
and we're good.
yeah,
Tents don't hand up.
yeah, they don't hold up
stand
to
snow.
stand in the snow real well, but
He seems to enjoy it, so more
Well.
power to him.
Hey,
if he's not causing trouble with anybody, then again, it's not the lifestyle I would choose
Yeah.
if I didn't have to, but you know.
I can't fault the guy. I just came back from Montana and I was doing the exact same thing. So
You were just doing
I-
it. See, if
most people pay to do that.
yeah, I was paying to do it.
you
yeah.
go out of state, you pay and do it for a week, and that's awesome. But God forbid you do it for 2 weeks on your own
On your
property or a month on your own property. And as I said, I can't. Other than the outhouse thing, and I wish he
Yeah.
would improve the quality of his disposal. But I can't make him, but I can just request it and hand him some information he may not have. That's right. Yeah, I agree.
As for the yurts, the yurts are something that we've talked about over and over and over and over again, but we haven't truly dealt with, and that's, we need to with building, because they're gonna continue to get more. I mean, the price of building anymore, I don't know why, you try to buy the property and then live there while you build your house. Now you can't even afford to build your garage to live atop. Prices are so expensive.
I've also been in, I've been researching other counties for comparables, and I want to hopefully do everything by Zoom, but I want to reach out to code compliance officers within comparable counties and really bounce ideas on what we can do to improve our current codes and establish fines that I can present to you guys, and just show what other counties are doing and kind of, go from there. We don't have very much comparables though. We're very unique. Large county.
Now, you'd
Like-
think there'd be Chelan, Douglas, Klickitat.
Klickitat is almost double our population. Chelan is, I think, a lot more. So I think it's Adams. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't.
Yeah, I think that's what you're gonna have to do is contact them and say, send me over your code on code compliance and kind of go through them and see which ones look complete or which ones look incomplete, and we just kind of go from there and take pieces from what we want and where. Yeah.
But that will be for next month's update. This month was a little short. I was not in my office as much as I wanted to be.
Well, we hope after budget season, we'll have time to sit down and fix some of these
Wouldn't that be fun?
issues.
Mediation services and code compliance. Because half of the time it's neighbor versus neighbor, and so there's mediation.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of my complaints are usually neighbor disputes that turn into just
Right.
bickering
Using
back and
us
forth.
as the.
Using us as
Yeah.
the weapon, which I don't like.
Yeah.
That's always my first question. Have you talked to your neighbor?
No.
No.
Oh, well,
I want you to
let's
fix
go.
it.
Let's go talk to him and just see.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know. You're really pissing them off. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, I'll,
They don't like it when I shoot my guns and fireworks off at midnight?
at midnight, yeah.
Yeah, but then there's other ones that are just upset because you have a light over your garage and now I can't sleep with my blind
No.
open. Sorry,
Sorry.
close your blind.
All right, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And ladies, I'll bring you up next
Probably.
one. Next time.
Okay, gentlemen, do we have anything to discuss?
Kind of. Today, Thursday, we need to discuss what we're gonna do with landfill contract offer and if we're just gonna let it die. My personal opinion is, counter offer with what is not chunking off pieces of our cake.
Right, here's my 6 versions that we can talk about it
I
on
still have my
Thursday.
copy over here that
I've trying to come up with something that's,
Not killing the cat?
yeah, well, and I would say I am, concerned.
Do you wanna talk about it today? Or do you wanna talk about it Thursday?
Thursday'd be better, I think, as far as,
That's what I
I'm
was-
still crunching some numbers.
Right, so that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah,
So
so
let's,
we can make sure we have some time on
let's be
Thursday.
prepared we'll do it after.
Okay,
So I just wanted to make sure you guys came prepared for that, and
Yeah.
if you need copies. I do want to bring up again that, it is another budget season. And I still would like to see the, old Public Works building under a lease agreement. Hopefully you can look at those pictures and give me an idea by the end of the day so I know where we're going. That's all I have.
Should have had that conversation when they were sitting in here.
I've mentioned it 3 or 4 times over the year. I don't. Said my piece.
I think we've,
Unless the board actually says it, I don't know that it'll get done.
thoughts?
I guess the way I kind of look at it is, if it would have been done at the end of last year or early this year, before they had received the funding that the county gave them out of the landfill funds, that could have been, what, $1.2 million that was already applied to that over this year. That didn't happen because it didn't get done, and now we're going into another budget cycle where the county might give them more money, and that might not get applied either if it's not done in time.
But I still don't think you can't just apply $500,000 to a building or whatever and say that. I think you still have to set a reasonable amount for rent.
Right, no, if you're, right, so you have 2 forms of agreement. You have, they're leasing this office space for X number of dollars, and we're leasing that office space right now for probation for X number of dollars, and the county ends up net ahead, but in that net, using that net ahead to pay off the building, so eventually the building becomes property of the general fund and not property of the road fund. That's what I want the contract for. If we're handing you money, and then in the end, when we sell this building, all the money goes to the road fund.
How much is the juvenile, how much are we paying for the juvenile? to stay?
Nothing, it's just a wash at this point, but if you look at number of people and number of space, my issue isn't so much lease of the space, it's landfill funds going to the road department, where I think eventually it would be nice if those funds was being used to take over ownership of the building. Because what you're gonna find when you come to use that building for something else is we're going to have to pay Public Works to put something else in that building because it isn't our building, it's a road building. If we were using the landfill funds to make it now a general fund building and not a road fund building, we would then in a couple of years be able to do with what we want with it. Because it would be a general fund building.
Wouldn't the easiest thing be to take the $500,000 that we're giving into the road fund and just do it as a purchase of the building, so the road fund gets the 500,000?
Right, and you could do it as a purchase agreement.
That would just go into it,
Right, and that's,
and it'd probably be 1 year, because if you look at the,
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, there must be some process for, valuation as far as
That's-
what the asset is, so that the road fund is whole.
made whole.
And
But it's
then,
made whole using the landfill funds, and whether that's a purchase agreement that it's paid off in the course of 1 year or 2 year, or whatever they end up having to appraise it out to be.
so does the road fund pay for the maintenance on the building?
yeah, probably likely, if it's an asset of the road fund, then the maintenance would get charged against the road fund as well, I suspect.
We've
I mean,
heard
it
so many
should.
different ways of.
No, I mean, I don't know, but I think that's pretty, like, it's the same, it's an asset. It's just like we don't pay, again, it's all us.
Right.
For one thing, it's not,
Right.
it's just that is a dedicated revenue source that those dollars have to
An
be used.
enterprise fund.
Yeah, and so, can I categorically say yes? I think they do. I suspect so. That anything that is supports those road fund assets are paid for out of the road fund, including maintenance, just like the equipment and
Well, they
everything
will be
else.
here on Thursday. For
Yeah,
budget, so
we'll
we can
have that discussion. I don't think it's really that hard as far as,
No.
it's just convert that, it is surplus to the road fund's needs, just like I honestly think we should be looking at other assets, whether they're road fund or other stuff that we surplus. They've got some other stuff that may not, I don't know that they need them anymore, and those should be surplused as well. And then, but the proceeds have to go to whatever the fund that owns it.
Right, and I
Have to
guess
go.
that's my thing, is we might find in 5 years or 2 years, we don't have a use for that building and we put it up on the market and sell it. And if
Yeah.
we do, currently, those funds would have to go to.
They would go to the road fund.
But if we're paying for it, it then becomes county or general fund.
Right.
And then when it's sold, that money goes general fund
Yeah.
versus road fund. So since we're paying them now, I would assume we get something for our dollar.
Yeah. Besides the road construction projects that
Correct.
we're paying for. Yeah, I have no issue with it. I mean, that's fine.
We'll talk about it on Thursday.
Yeah.
With the road department. Okay, you got anything else?
No, not right now.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adjourn for lunch, recess for lunch, back at 1 o'clock.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to recess for lunch. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Being it is 1 o'clock, we are going to call the regular business meeting of the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners to order. Let the record show all 3 commissioners are present. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the business agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the business agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, we don't have any minutes. Do you have the translation on? I don't see it.
It should have been on, I turned it on this morning, but I'll double check.
Okay. Next, we are going to move into public comment. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual. And as always, the remaining time will be left for responses from the Board of County Commissioners. So it's more of a comment than a back and forth. We will begin, as always, in the room. If somebody has public comment, come forward, please give us your name and where you're from, and I will get the.
Ken McCune, Golden Dale, Washington.
Good to see you, Ken.
Nice to see you all, especially you, Dan. You had us worried, but I knew you're back in the saddle again, Val.
I got my blood pressure cuff, so hopefully I keep my stress down.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going through the agenda and the extension of this meeting on the 8th. Is that going to be Zoomed?
The budget part?
Pardon me?
We do budget on Thursdays and the budget part is not Zoom.
I'm talking about the workshop, budget workshop. Is that-
Yeah, Thursdays, we Zoom Tuesdays, we don't Zoom Thursdays.
Why don't you? Because that's a lot of information I think people would like to know in there. And
It's open meeting.
I know, I'd like to come here too, but at home I can sit there with a beer and a burger and listen to it.
I should try that.
Yeah. Here, we get to share one another's social communication, you might put it. You never know who's going to walk in here with a bug. Why should I risk myself to come down here and sit with you guys for 6 hours from 9 in the morning till 3 past 3 in the afternoon for 6 hours when I can be doing it at home? And why am I even interested? Because it's the way it is. You know, the more information people get, the happier they are. I mean, some people need alcohol, some people need drugs, some people need sex. I need information to be happy. And I enjoy looking at how our system works, the people that work for us. To see their faces would be great. I mean, but what's the problem with not Zooming it? You don't have the money, you don't have, we know we got the technology, and it would be a long day, but how often would you have to do it? And so basically, my request would be for you guys to take another look at Zooming these budget meetings, especially as it's gonna be deep. I'm gonna come whether you Zoom it or not. You're gonna have to look at my ugly face for 6 hours sitting out here in the audience. At least I plan on it. Something may come up between then and there. But anyway, oh, and Jake, I want to thank you for Zooming while you were flying the airplane. That was so cool, man. It was like being up in the air with you. Yeah. And so I don't know what the problem is with Zooming these budget meetings. It's just, we got the technology. There's a lot of things people would like to know. They shouldn't have to come down here and cram themselves in here to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKeon, and thank you for coming in person. Next, we will go online. Is there anybody who would like to provide public comment to the Board of County Commissioners? Please *6 to unmute your phone, raise your hand, or turn your video camera on.
We'll see something real quick while you're sitting there waiting. That black book that's on that podium right there is the budget book that we're going through. And it lists everything out in it if you want to peek at it while you're sitting there waiting.
Wow.
That's a citizen copy, so.
It's available on the county website as
Yep,
well.
and it's also on the county website. It's just big.
Wow, that's a lot of information in it.
Again, if there's anyone who would like to provide public comment, raise your hand, *6, or turn your video on. All right, 7211.
This is Greg Wagner with C. Last week, Mr. Barta spoke to you, as he has done for 20 months, about the need for you to address the solar issues surrounding in the county. The need for solar ordinances which would protect the county and its citizens. The Yakima County Commissioners have enacted a solar moratorium to protect their citizens. You three commissioners rescinded our moratorium and have done nothing to protect the Klickitat County citizens. After rescinding the solar moratorium, Mr. Sauter said, "I don't want to do anything to slow down the solar company plans." This statement clearly shows who he works for. The Yakima commissioners have been proactive while you remain inactive. Mr. Barta politely told you you are not serving the public as you should be doing. He addressed your shortcomings and failures. It's obvious that you didn't hear a word he said. You refused to listen to him or anyone and have failed to take the appropriate action needed to protect the citizens of Klickitat County regarding the solar issue. Regardless of how a citizen speaks to you, you will do nothing. As public servants, you are derelict in your duties. Your oath requires you to discharge duties to the best of your abilities, which you have failed to do. The comprehensive plan, the county's master plan, pages 66 through 71, states, of the people, by the people, for the people, to encourage public participation in the decision-making. You have failed at this also. When an employee fails to do their job, you fire them. Why do you three commissioners still have jobs? The good citizens of Klickitat County deserve leaders who place them first and work for them, instead of working for the solar corporations. When will you start? Thank you.
Thank you as always, Mr. Wagner. Okay, back in the room. Is there any, come on forward?
Delmer Eldred, Golden Dale, Washington. And it just amazes me that you, last week, when you stated that you've never looked at the impact, I mean, that these renewable energies are gonna have, and all the problems that they're having, we're not gonna be exempt from what's going on. I mean, you take a look at California right now. May, June, you could not buy a cat generator. You know why? Because California back orders were so horrendous, they were trying to catch up. They were the only ones getting them because they, as Governor Newsom stated, we're going to be into blackouts and brownouts. He's the biggest generator salesman there's ever been. And that's because they depend, so many areas that depend on the stuff that you guys think is just fine to bring in here. I mean, Benton County, Yakima County, those commissioners took a look at what the end effect was going to be with this renewable energy and decided we need to protect this county and the citizens. But you guys would just ignore everything. You don't take a look to see what is going to be the future and what the impact is going to be with thousands of acres of tillable land devastated and millions of solar panels, which are going to not last probably because they've had to reduce the quality because of the price it is to make them. So to make it feasible, now we have cheaper made panels than they did before, and they're not going to last very long. And you're full of toxic materials, then you're going to have to find a place to put them, and you have no plan for that. And if you think that these companies are going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars decommission it out of their profits that they made, you live in dream world, because these people are smart. They know how to dance around anything you throw at them. They've been sued. And they get sued for $3 or $4 million. These are billion-dollar companies. That's a joke. They don't care. You know, but you guys are not paying attention to what is coming down the road and what's going on, or you don't care, or there's some kind of benefit that you're getting from it that is an advantage to you. And it's one other point I want to bring up is, it looks to me like you guys are dealing with a 3% deficit on your budget. I think it's time you started looking at hiring freezes, wage freezes, and the projects that are not high priority are not be canceled if they haven't been started. You guys got to get this budget in line. You keep going the way you're going, you're going to bankrupt this county. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Eldred. Okay, next we will go back online. Miss Irving.
Technical issues. Well, last week you mentioned something about the texts. My name is Ruby Irving. I'm from Goldendale. You mentioned something about the text messages that I had sent you that you hadn't responded to, and you made it sound like I sent you a lot of texts, which really isn't true considering the fact that I only texted you on April 13th, the day after I was terminated, and May 11th, the day after all of the news came out about the underage party at your place. So to just set the record clear, there weren't a lot of texts, and I have no idea why you even brought it up. To Greg from CEAS, being fired for failing to do a job, personally, I take that a little personally because I didn't fail to do a job. That's not why I was terminated. And then, of course, with the gentleman that just spoke, I want to say that that was a very well thought out and actually had some information in there that is useful, you know, for me to actually look at in terms of the solar farm. So I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that's pretty much it. Dan, it is good to see you up there on that bench, because you know, those hard tasks can really just kind of end everything. So I'm happy to see that, and I didn't mention it last week, so I'm mentioning it now. Anyway, thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin. Whoa. Feedback. Okay, next, back in the room. Is there anybody who'd like to provide public comment? Today? All right, back online. Is there anybody who online? Ms. Bosque?
Good afternoon, this is Sherry. I would first like to thank Dell for a wonderful educational information he's just provided you gentlemen. And again, I'm going to bring up solar ordinances for Klickitat County. We continue to educate you. We send you information. You are all educated on what's coming down the line here in Klickitat County surrounding Golden Dale, specifically with the Knight Road project with Carriger that Commissioner Christopher has recused himself for. And I think enough's been said how irresponsible this is of you commissioners to continue to ignore it. Commissioner Christopher, I've heard you say you're outvoted 1-2. And then during the time you speak back to the citizens, if you could enlighten us some more on what you mean by when you say your vote is outvoted by 1-2 on solar ordinances. And if you can give the public your stance on what you feel about Klickitat County developing and implementing solar ordinances for protection of our county, such as you've all heard other counties are doing. And you know, these projects off Knight Road have to get a conditional use permit. We've been over this. And Commissioner Anderson, you continue to tell us to trust the process to obtain a conditional use permit. I dare ask you, have you? But onward, you say our voices will be heard. Currently, Klickitat County is in a lawsuit with the people fighting against Under Canvas's conditional use permit because it's a death trap. The placement is wrong. Everything about it's wrong, where it's placed. And we're fighting against our county, and our county is using taxpayer dollars to fight against us. Trying to put something in place that doesn't belong where you're trying to put it. Nobody ever said no Under Canvas in Klickitat, but put it where it belongs, where it's safe, where it won't kill people trying to evacuate when they can't. So our voices were not heard during the SEPA. Our voices were not heard for the conditional use permit. And anybody can go back and watch those videos. And you'll see how we all were against this and we were not heard. So to tell the people to trust the process doesn't work because we spoke and we aren't heard. We have a lawsuit and we aren't heard. And one more question for Commissioner Sauter. Do you plan on taking any position with Klickitat County after you are done with your commissioner's position? And maybe specifically, do you plan on taking the project coordinator that planning department's been advertising for? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bosque. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment? If so, raise your hand. Turn your video on, turn your mic on. I'm not seeing anyone. Going once. If there's anybody who'd like to provide public comment. Going twice. And a third time. Tracy, I knew somebody'd jump on it.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I have a question on, there's a couple projects coming up that I haven't seen in the agendas or heard on the meetings for the commissioner meetings that are in Klickitat County. And my one question is, why are they not a part of the commissioner meetings? And secondly, I haven't seen one of them in the public records in the newspaper, or public notices, I guess they are, in the newspaper. But the first one is a Slavin turtle project under the Underwood Conservatory district or department. And they're doing substantial work on the property. It's one of 3 projects that'll be going on from 2022 to 2023 to supposedly give the turtles better abilities to survive. And my question is why are we messing with nature? You know, in my understanding, those turtles actually are not even native to the Lyle area. They actually came from California, is my understanding through documents at the museum. But why are we spending $65,000 for the first project, and the others haven't been it has been discussed how much they are, but you know. And then the second project is through the Forest Service, and it's trying to save a stand of old pine trees in the Major Creek area. And I also haven't heard that through the commissioners' meetings. And, you know, I go down to that little pond over there by Major Creek, and there's actually turtles in there. And they're planning on burning out an area in order to help the pine trees survive. 2 questions on that is, one, it's a historical area. The first house in Lyle was actually right there at the Major Creek area. And Mr. Sauter, you probably are aware of that. That was burned to learn for the fire department years and years ago. And also there's turtles in the area. So how do we know that we're not burning out their habitat? And then thirdly, you know, the pine beetle is a very destructive thing for pine trees, and they're surviving right now. If we expose those pine trees, are they going to be exposed to the beetle as they aren't right now? But anyway, just these projects aren't put out to the public, and I'm wondering why we don't learn about them and get it to have comments on them. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, one last chance. Is there anybody else who would like to provide public comment? I am not hearing anyone. Okay. Would either of my seatmates like to respond?
I got one. For Tracy, the 2 projects you mentioned with Underwood Conservation District and the other one with the Forest Service, those are not Klickitat County projects. We have no say over projects of other government organizations. I'm sure they have a citizen comment. Those government organizations have a citizen comment area. I'm sure they have public hearings of which any residents that want to be involved in those 2 topics can go address their concerns. But as it's not a Klickitat County operating or facilitating or coming up with these great ideas, there's also nothing I can do to tell them yes or no or stop or go forward or anything else. It's outside of the county commissioner's control on those 2 issues. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I'd follow up on that too, Tracy. The one, as far as the turtle project, I had heard about just kind of through the grapevine because it's in my neighborhood. The other one, as far as the pine trees down on the old Hewitt place, that's the first I've heard of it. I would echo Commissioner Christopher. These are 2 different government entities. They're not county, but they are both projects ostensibly are in the scenic area, and they would have to go through scenic area permitting. There is an opportunity they have public comment once a month at the Gorge Commission meeting. I know it's on Tuesdays. It may even be today. I'm not sure. So I would suggest if you go on the Gorge Commission's website, it'll have the date of their when their monthly meeting ends. And I know they do have a 3-minute public comment period. And you can also look in their agenda or their past agendas to see where both of these projects should have been discussed at some point. They were not discussed with us. Budget impacts as far as, first off, I guess, Mr. Eldred, I'm not sure when you said we spoke about that we have not looked at impacts, that was we saying that we had never looked at the impacts of solar?
That was Major Anderson last week.
Okay.
No, I've never looked at the impact. Because I can't believe you have either.
Well, just so that I set the record straight, as far as over 2 years ago, or about 2 years ago, when we had the first project that was proposed to be constructed in Klickitat County, I did actually go. We had none of them of scale in Washington State. I did go set up a meeting to go over to look at a large scale, actually 2 large scale projects in Eastern Oregon, which we then later, after the first of the year, when we had a new board members, we again went out and toured those, asked questions of stuff. So to say that we have not actually tried to educate ourselves as to what a working solar farm looks like, what its impacts are, what it looks like in the community, that's not accurate. We have, and we may not agree on the impacts and what those, we obviously have arrived at different.
Let's just, 9 Walmarts solar panels have burned up. Why? Because the wiring is not the wiring is not what it's supposed to be. And that's what you're buying today, is those same cheap panels that they're having trouble with. 9 Walmarts have burned up because of that.
Sir, this is, again, this is not, I am, this is my time to talk. As far as there is, how many, I just want to ask you, you likely drove here today in a vehicle, or unless you walked, I doubt that, but you probably drove here in a vehicle that has, it's either gas or diesel. How many car fires were there in the last year in the United States? Probably many. I don't know the number, and maybe there was, but I suspect it's not none. I watched one across the river just last week on Interstate 84 that and it was a vehicle that had a problem, and it caught on fire and burned up, shut the whole freeway down. No technology is without some risk. It's about managing those risks to mitigate things to an acceptable level. And so you can always pull examples of, same with lithium ion batteries. Yeah, we need to be careful with them. We are all using technology that they have from time to time. There are problems with those if they are not used properly, if they are mishandled, if they are not used. Everything inherently can be dangerous.
You're talking about individual accidents. I'm talking about potential disaster. Thermal, you talk about these batteries that you guys have, that's like comparing a firefly to the sun compared to these huge, big.
And again, we have just for the record, we have no battery storage facilities in Klickitat County. They may propose one, and that will be the time that we would look at what are those impacts. And sir, this is my opportunity, and the chair is going to gavel me down in a second anyway. As to, solar ordinances and protecting the citizens, we have a difference of opinion that the citizens are not being protected. Now, we have ordinances to address lots of different projects, including solar projects. But my question to the same folks that we have every week is, can you envision a solar ordinance that actually allowed industrial scale solar in Klickitat County?
Sure. you don't put it where tillable land. You have property out
Okay,
there.
so those are, so if you would be okay with large scale industrial solar as long as it is not on,
I would, that's up to, if they wanna put it out there on the 14, on those rocky hills, that's fine with me. That would be fine with me.
so do you think the most important thing is that the land, if it's agricultural land, tillable land, should be no solar farms on till, that's the primary
Right.
decision? Okay. Okay, I've used enough of my time, thank you. Excuse me.
But can I ask you one question? Where are the solar ordinances that you're talking about? Where I can't find them. You said you have ordinances on solar, but
We have ordinances that cover multiple things,
You don't have solar
including solar. We don't have we don't have industry-specific ordinances on lots of things. That doesn't mean there are not ordinances that regulate how those uses can or cannot be used in Klickitat County.
what
Yes,
ordinances
so I'm-
would apply to solar?
And
What
I,
are they? Because I'm trying to research this to find out.
I have a separate question if you're willing to answer it, because your information there about putting them on the hill, that's good knowledge for me. So your take is you want to protect tillable agricultural land. Is that even from development? No subdivisions, no breaking them up and putting houses on it? Or is it only when it comes to wind and solar to protect the tillable land?
When it comes to you're completely devastating the property, that'll be, these things are building now got 10, 12 years best. These new ones that are coming up, they're junk. And they're unsubstantial, they don't produce enough electricity to provide anything. You're
Right, but we
destroying
have some-
but you're destroying thousands of acres of
We have
tillable
some,
land. If you
there's a
put-
big lot south of town that is looking at subdividing, it's tillable acreage now. They're looking at subdividing and putting a development on it. Yeah, I've heard rumor about a solar plant across the highway from there. Are you talking about protecting ag land, period, or only from green energy? You're okay with the development on it?
Well, if it's a subdivision, you're bringing something into this county that's gonna be a benefit. These people are gonna produce an economy, they're gonna pay taxes. You're putting in solar that's got a depreciation value that's gonna probably deplete in 10 years. We get nothing out of it.
All right, that helps me, thank you.
It's a slight day, so.
Get 30 seconds.
Mr. Eldred, before you leave, do you want to hear any other responses? I haven't responded, so, guess not. Mr. McCune, why not? We're in the twilight zone.
It seems to me that it would be to the benefit of the county to go ahead and Zoom these workshops, because then you have an electronic record of what people said. You probably go ahead and record them anyway, but you're not.
No, they're not recorded.
That's
They're
the
not.
purpose, the cost of recording in the space on the internet, in the data in the cloud, we have to keep everything for 7 years. Creation of public records, the cost of storing the data was the reason we chose not to.
Oh, is that right? Wow, that's kind of like shocking to me, because here we have all this technology and we can't even afford to use it. Huh?
Well, you can use it, it would just be an expense.
Yeah.
And we're trying to manage the budget, so it's one expense.
Yeah. Oh my God, that thing is just mind blowing. Okay, well, I guess I got my answer. Thank you.
All right, well, since everybody left, maybe I shouldn't use my time. Oh, he actually said it. Okay, Mr. McCune, you've got the answer from my seatmates. In terms of Mr. Wagner, I did not hear Mr. Barta last week say that we are not serving the public. I have never heard Mr. Barta make disparaging or any type of comments that were defamatory in any way. So you might want to go back and check the recording to make sure that's what he said. But those were the words that I didn't hear him say, according to what you're saying. And I think that all three of us discharge our duties to the best of our abilities. Just because we disagree does not mean that we don't care, does not mean that we don't spend our time and look into the things that you've brought up. Multiple of the things that you've brought up, we have looked into and we have been fixing, whether it's fees and or how we assess charging everyone for the time that the county duties are exercised on. About the only thing that we don't charge for is public records request as of as soon as we adopt these new fee schedules. There is public decision-making in any process, especially when it goes through the legislative or quasi-judicial process. When Ms. Bosque says that we spoke and you didn't listen. When you speak and you're commenting on anything to do with planning or mitigated determinations of non-significance or even EISs, which I don't believe you've commented on yet, we are required to respond to those comments. If those comments lead to questions that we cannot respond to, we are authorized to go out and spend more money finding the answers to those comments. Now, when the decision is made or when the experts, whether it's a fire department chief or whether it's somebody who works as an archaeologist, comes up with their determination when it comes to these projects that you say people are dangerous and deadly and whatever else you're pointing at on that given day. We look to the experts for their advice and their determination when it comes to these things. With regards to one of those projects that you were speaking towards, that was not even determined by the Board of County Commissioners. That was determined by a hearings examiner who's a land use attorney who does this all day, every day, who's in essence works much like a judge, who takes all of the information in and makes decisions based on that, not based on feelings, but based on facts and based on the expert testimony. Mr. Eldred, I don't know if well, you're not in here, so you can't respond now. The way it was put that we have not looked into these impacts. Like Commissioner Sauter said, I have been to multiple of these projects. I've looked at them from the air. I've flown over them. I've looked at how close they are to neighbors in 3 or 4 different states now. I actually do my research. I actually do look to see what negative impacts and harms and damages are occurring. I do ask those hard questions about whether the neighbors' property values are declining and what we can find by that. That is part of our job to look into these things. And yes, we do look into these things. Now, with regard to the statement on blackouts and brownouts and everything, I don't know if everyone's aware, but Washington and Oregon both decided that we're not going to be selling vehicles that have combustible engines in another 13 years. 40% of the total energy we use in the United States comes from oil and gas. That means in Washington state, 40% of our energy is going to have to come from alternative means. And I promise you, this is not going to be from coal. This is not going to be from natural gas, even though I think it would need to be from natural gas in order to match it. But when you look at what our state is and is not permitting, they are running gung-ho towards all things green energy. And that isn't just our state, that's our federal government as well, if you look at the legislation that was recently passed. I know I'm just a very, very small wheel in this very large cog that is being steamrolled over the top of us. Do I think that it is logical, rational, or at all possible to redesign an entire grid to run on only electricity and not fuels or oil or fossil fuels in the next 12 years? No, I don't think anything's possible. But do I think that it's practical, rational, or reasonable to expect our PUD to be able to handle 40% more power on every one of their lines, which some of them are close to being tapped already. I don't think that is a healthy expectation. But when it comes to how are we going to do this? Well, the answer is pumped storage and creating batteries that are not lithium ion. I've always said that I'm in favor of this pumped storage plant before solar was even planned in this county. Why? Because we have windmills and windmills don't blow all the time. But the pumped storage project is a great way to store that energy from those windmills. Do I see another dam being built on the Columbia River? Absolutely not. I hear they're trying to take them out, in fact. But we have, and this is the supply-demand equation, we have demand for energy. That demand is going to continue to rise. We have done everything we can as a nation in terms of becoming more efficient. We spent the last 20 years working on efficiency. And now it's on that backside of that curve. Am I in favor of, small scale nuclear reactors using today's technology? Absolutely. Do I want to see them in my backyard? Probably not. But nobody ever does. Do you remember the Whoops projects? I mean, come on. Whoops was Whoops. Sorry. Whoops. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Well, they would have all worked. Ms. Bosque.
Commissioner Anderson, will you allow me to clarify something that you've already stated?
Why not, since we're in the twilight zone?
Yes. Okay, so you stated that our county relies on expert testimony when allowing or when approving conditional use permit, and you took example of our fire district chief out here, and I'd like to clarify, it is on video, that our fire chief testified as a lay witness, and during his testimony, he said he was not qualified to approve an evacuation plan for the under canvas project, which I would guess he's not qualified for any evacuation determination. So I would like to clarify that he was not an expert witness. He classified himself as not being one, and he cannot approve that evacuation plan that is missing from under canvas's application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bosque. But again, we are not getting into the details on any projects because as it was clearly stated, that project did not come before the Board of County Commissioners. And I believe that there is reams of documents with regards to that project that the hearings examiner looked at. And again, I was recused, so I have nothing I can add to that. Tracy, I would go to the Columbia River Gorge Commission for all of your answers to your questions with regards to anything that happens within the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. Or you can contact Tova Tillinghast with the Underwood Conservation District. I have been contacted by neighbors about the Turtle Project with questions about, what that enhancement will do to their property. I will say, though, that wildlife enhancement projects are normal. They are something that happens all throughout Klickitat County, whether it is the fish recovery funding dollars that we, Klickitat County, manage, or whether it's CRM or CRP grounds that are set aside for habitat conservation. And finally, I would say that when it comes to where to site solar and other green energy projects, tillable ground, which could be the CRP ground, which could be ground that is currently being tilled, which could be fallow ground, which could be usually the flattest, best available ground for any development. Usually houses go on there. In most places, we are always in this battle between uses, conflicting uses of property. And while I think that, yes, it would be great to put solar panels on the steep hillsides They're above the old aluminum smelter site. I wouldn't sign up to be the guy climbing over those rattlesnake rocks to go do it. And I don't think you could find it to be profitable in any way whatsoever. I do have concerns when it comes to solar. When I went out there and looked at the amount of grading that occurs when they actually put those in the ground, which I hope an EIS, when an EIS is ever done, is going to look into thoroughly about the amount of grading that occurs and the total number of cubic yards that are moved. But when it comes to it, whether you're growing crops or you're dealing with solar, you're still farming one thing, and that's the sun. You're farming solar energy. And solar panels, the only thing you're not farming that crops require is water. But otherwise, you're pretty much farming the sun. And when it comes to that distinction on where I have always drawn the line, and what Oregon has done, because I have looked into it, it is on farmlands of statewide significance. It is on the highest farmland with deep soil that is rich and available for growth. That's where I draw the soil. I don't like to ever see irrigated ag land be removed from irrigation. I don't like to see, the highest quality ground that may be irrigated or not being used. I like to see things occur, whether it's wind or solar, on your lowest quality farm ground. What happens on the backside of that is if you say, well, you're going to pick the poorest of poor soils, well, a lot of that land has already been set aside under the Conservation Reserve Program, as well as for other wildlife endangered species. Because the other thing is anything that's tillable ground, the solar panels usually don't have to pay Department of Fish and Wildlife mitigation for that. And so there's always a balancing act on where it can and cannot occur, whether it's solar, pump storage, or anything else. Honestly, we talk about solar because it's been being talked about for so long, but whether it's solar or it's another calpine plant, you're always trying to weigh the uses and what's best for the public. And with that, I think I've used more than enough time of mine.
Comment to add, you pretty much hit everything on the head, but there was one comment about solar being subsidized by the federal government. And farmland is better. I would encourage those same people that made that argument to maybe go look and see how much farmland is subsidized by the federal government. And you might be shocked at what you actually find. But farms and farmland and cattle and wheat and corn and everything else is very heavily subsidized by the federal government. I'm not saying that that's wrong or right, but I'm not saying that solar being subsidized is wrong or right either.
Okay, with that, we are going to close public comment unless I'd like to have one last.
Oh, no. We could go all day, but.
Yeah, well.
Only hit 144, 81
Good. Glad you're healing well. All right, public comment is now closed. We are going to move into a public meeting to consider the boundary approval of the boundary line adjustment, BLA 2022-07. And I will say while you're walking up here, thank you for everyone for your public comments. Thank you for the time you spend looking at the budget. Thank you for asking questions. Yes, ma'am.
This boundary line adjustment, BLA 2022-07, is a proposal to adjust the common property line between parcels 05152716160400 and 05152716160300 off of Pine Forest Road. The proposed boundary line adjustment is located within a portion of Section 27, Township 5 North, Range 15 East, Willamette Meridian, Klickitat County, Washington, and Goldendale vicinity. The administrative review has been completed and signatures have been obtained from the Road Department, the Treasurer's Department, the Health Department, and Planning Department. All conditions attached to the preliminary approval have been met. If the board finds it in the public's interest to approve this boundary line adjustment, a motion will need to be granted for final approval of BLA 2022-07.
Does Did any of my seatmates have any questions? Pretty straightforward. If none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion approving boundary line adjustment 2022-07, the applicant's Lawton Creek LLC.
There's been a motion and a second to approve boundary line adjustment BLA 2022-07. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next up, public meeting to consider the final approval of subdivision SUB 2019-02.
Okay, applicant is Matt Graves. Sub 2019-02 is a proposal to create 4 lots from parcel 0410-0219, 1504-00, formerly parcel 0410-0217, 0304-00, prior to BLA 2019-05. What happened was he did a BLA and a subdivision simultaneously, and he approved the BLA first. So it's not happening, and that changed the parcel number. So that's what happened there. Anyway, the project began, okay. It's up in the BZ Corner vicinity. The subdivision was required because it was within the 5-year window. The previous proposal was SPL 2017-03, and they came back 2 years later to further subdivide. The admin review of this subdivision has been completed. Signatures have been obtained from the Road Health Planning and Treasurer's Office. All conditions of preliminary approval have been met. If the board finds that it's in the public's interest to approve this subdivision, a motion needs to be granted to be made granting final approval of sub 2019-02. Applicant Matt Graves.
Any questions here? Was this the first one in your memory that was a short plat that became a long plat? Or had that been ever done before?
Not to my knowledge. That made me mean that it was,
That somebody came back within the.
well, because they have to within that 4
Right.
years. There may have been one at some point, or 5
They
years.
don't happen that often.
It doesn't, yeah, they don't happen.
Because they
very
have to
often.
jump a lot more hoops to do a
Oops, when it's a
subdivision.
subdivision
Right.
versus a short
Hearing.
plat.
You know, et cetera.
I don't have, I mean,
No.
we already approved it. This is just a final approval because they finally did all the conditions.
Right.
Which, you know, this is the different, that's the thing that people don't understand. We continue to get accused of, you know, Mochi allowed this and this hadn't been done. Well, there's a difference between your preliminary approval
And your
the
final.
approval that
Right.
some people in the audience don't understand. In order to get final approval and to go into operation, you have to complete all the conditions. And this is an example of.
Right, this is the final step.
So
Mr.
with-
Chairman, if you're ready,
Yep.
then I would make a motion to grant final approval to SUB 2019-02. The applicant is Matt Graves.
I would second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to grant final approval to sub 2019-02. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anybody want to go with the consent agenda?
Yeah,
2 items.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with all 2 items.
I'll second the motion.
Wish it was like that always.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a motion and a second to, for the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Who wants to do the bills?
There's not much in there either.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve accounts payable warrants in the amount of $356,334.14 for the date ending September 6, 2022.
I would second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Anybody have anything for board pending today?
The only thing I'd say is I looked, and again, this is, you can find anything you want on the internet, so it's with a grain of salt. I was kind of curious, my statement about the vehicle fires and so the average number of vehicle fires in the United States is 287,000 per year, causing an estimated 480 deaths a year from vehicles. It is down, that was one site. A different site was the number in 2020 was 181,000 vehicle fires. So again, this is existing technology that has some inherent danger associated with it.
With people sitting inside of it.
People sitting inside of them. And we all know, refineries are like the most safest operating things in the world. So.
All right. Is there anything else?
Just so that we are driving comments for next week.
As I drive home. Thinking about how many fires there are.
Yes.
My car burns down, I'm blaming you. Yeah. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Huh?
But I don't have anything.
Okay, well.
All right, well, Mr. Chairman, then I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting until 9 a.m. on Thursday, September 8th, 2022 for scheduled workshops.
I would second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to recess the meeting until September 8th at 9 a.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you all for signing in. All 22 that was left today. Wow, we only get like 3 of these a year, don't we? Where it's just